the Rainfall podcast. Today we're going to be talking about another of the races, this time the Successors. So, Successors are, as their name implies, the sort of successors to humanity's legacy. Now they are the dominant life force on Earth. But what exactly are they? Well, they were created through genetic experiments by these invaders, and they were intended to as a way to perfect humanity, to make them better, to make something that resembled humanity but was in all ways better than it. So, in general, they do look a lot like humans. However, their skin tones are a bit different. They range all the way from white, completely white, to totally black, and they're mostly various shades of gray in between. Um, their hair colors are generally pastel sort of colors. Reds, greens, blues, those types of things. But yellow is by far the most common hair color. And their eyes are this sort of swimming mess of colors, constantly changing and swirling. Um, Now, there are three different strains of successors in Rainfall, and they're named after sort of generic fantasy kind of races. These are elves, dwarves, and orcs. Um, so, elves were meant as a way to perfect sort of the outer beauty of humanity. And so all elves look almost exactly identical. They're all tall, thin, androgynous, and just in general extremely beautiful. In fact, elves all look so similar that even elves have a very hard time telling each other apart. And so, in order to sort of fix this, all elves wear masks that cover their face and sort of serve as their way to distinguish themselves from each other. And they're carved into unique shapes and patterns and painted with various different colors. Women tend to paint their masks with more warm colors, things like red and orange and pink and those sort of tones. Whereas men tend to paint their masks with more cool colors, things like blues and greens and purples. Now we move on to our dwarves. So dwarves are the most human-like. They have a perfected mind. They have amazing memories. They can remember anything for any amount of time. They never forget anything. They're also smarter than other races. They're more clever. They can think quicker and come up with more creative solutions. And just as being the most human-like, the only real difference between them and humans, other than the general sort of appearance of a successor, is that they're shorter than average humans, about a foot or half a foot shorter than a regular human. And finally, we'll get into orcs. So orcs are sort of the perfected body of humans. They are strong and fast and just very physically capable. They have broad shoulders and big muscles and those sort of things. And one of the big defining features of orcs that sort of sets them apart from other successors is their lower canine teeth. They're large and they stick out above their lips, forming a sort of set of tusks that stick out from their mouth even when their mouth is closed. So those are in general our three types of successors that we see throughout the land, and they all have formed into kingdoms along racial lines. And these large kingdoms are sort of the main political entity in Rainfall. They are huge kingdoms with many citizens and large tracts of land. And so other races, when sort of dealing with successors, have to do it on the successors' terms, because they're huge, they have big armies, they have lots of power, and so people want to deal with them, for trade and other things like that. But they have to do it the way the successors want, because obviously the successors have the greatest power and control in all of Rainfall. So talking about the culture of successors. Um, in general, loyalty is the biggest thing to a successor. Successors value loyalty to their state, loyalty to each other, and to sort of their deals as sort of their highest ideal. But also they value personal freedoms, so things like freedom of speech and that sort of stuff. They like their people to be able to be free to do what they want, as long as they're still loyal to the state. And finally, they value hard work, and so they value someone who's going to go out and do things, work hard all day and make an honest living. So one of their biggest things, goal-wise for successors, is that they see themselves as the successors to humanity. They see themselves as sort of the next wave of humans, and so they are always seeking out relics from the world before. They're trying to find things that humans have left behind and understand them and control them, and they're always on the lookout for something that they can use from humans. And politically, like I said, they're organized into kingdoms. They have a king at the top, and underneath them, lots of lower lords who swear fealty to the king. And so things are much more local for them. Each one of their settlements is ruled by some sort of noble who commands over that but swears fealty to a higher lord. It's basically a feudal kind of system. And in terms of their religious beliefs, like the remnants, they have two general religious beliefs. The first is that they worship ancient humans. They see them as ascended beings. They see them in a very godlike status and think of them as people who are better than any living creature. And they see the things that have been left behind by humans, their technologies and their structures and everything like that, as holy relics, holy artifacts, things that need to be safeguarded and protected and worshipped. And the other sect of their religious worship worships these creatures that had created them, these invaders that destroyed the world. They see them as their creators, and they're to be worshipped for their power and their basically their genius in creating successors. And so they sort of await for the day when they believe that these creatures will return and will wipe them off the face of the earth once again. So that is about all that I'm going to say about successors for now. For next time, we're going to continue talking about races, and we're going to be talking about the forebearers. So if you liked that video, please subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And I will see you next time.